I was 18 the night my mother ripped my MIT acceptance letter in half. "This isn't who we are," she said. I taped it back together in our bathroom at 4 a.m. I left at 5. I didn't return for 7 years. What I brought back with me to my grandmother's 80th birthday party, in front of 30 people, that's the part my mother still refuses to talk about. My name is Teresa Davis, and the tradition in my family was simple. The eldest daughter doesn't go to college. My grandmother followed it. My mother followed it. My aunt followed it. I'm the one who didn't. Here's what happened the day I went home. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. This channel is for women who grew up holding everyone together, who learned to walk away without slamming a door, and who understand that the loudest answer is sometimes simply leaving the room. If you've ever taped something back together that someone you love tried to destroy, leave a comment and be sure to subscribe. I grew up in a brick row house on Mahanango Street in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. 2 bedrooms upstairs, a kitchen at the back. A grandmother in the front room who watched television with the volume turned all the way down. My father worked at Lawless Tool and Die, 6 minutes away by car. My mother stayed home. My sister Maddie was 13. I was 18. The tradition in our house had a shape. It looked like my grandmother's wooden recipe box on the kitchen counter. Oak. The word Davis carved across the lid. The box held 3 generations of index cards: lasagna, pierogies, krachiki, applesauce cake. It also held the rule: the eldest daughter stays. The eldest daughter cooks. The eldest daughter marries someone within driving distance. My grandmother had done it. My mother had done it. My Aunt Carol had done it. I was next. I never said no out loud. That wasn't how we operated. I said no the way the women in my family said no, quietly, in private, in a place no one would think to look for me. That place was the school library on Garfield Avenue, 2nd floor, west window, the table behind the encyclopedias. I took the SAT in October. I took the ACT in November. I lied about where I was on Saturday mornings. My mother thought I was working shifts at the Patel family bakery for $10 cash. I actually was 3 Saturdays out of 4. The 4th Saturday, I was on a bus to Philadelphia for a test. I scored 1560 on the SAT, 35 on the ACT. I told no one. I sent in 7 applications. 1 was to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. 6 were safety schools I couldn't afford. The large envelope arrived on a Thursday in March. I almost didn't make it upstairs in time. The mailbox was the kind with a red flag nobody ever raised. I walked home from school at 3:18 the way I always did, and I saw the corner of the envelope sticking out before I reached the porch. MIT in red letters across the upper left. The envelope was thick. Thick was the thing every senior in America waited for. Thin meant no. Thick meant yes. I tucked it beneath my coat, went straight upstairs, locked the bathroom door behind me, and sat on the edge of the tub. The letter was 3 pages. The first line said, "Congratulations." The second line said, "Full need-based scholarship." The third line said, "Housing and meal plan included." I read the first sentence 11 times. I cried without making a sound. I sat there for what my watch later told me was 14 minutes. I had a plan, and the plan had always been to say no. The plan had been to apply in secret on principle and then decline if a yes ever came, then tuck that rejection into the same place where I kept the test scores. The plan had been to know, just to know, that I could have. The plan had never expected full financial need. I read it a 12th time. I folded the letter into thirds. I slipped it beneath the bath mat. I went downstairs and ate dinner. My mother asked if I wanted seconds. I said, "No thank you." She said I looked pale. I said I had a headache. I had 36 hours before the second envelope, the one with housing forms and the parent affidavit, would arrive. My mother opened the mail every weekday at 4. I had Friday afternoon to figure out what I was going to do. I didn't figure it out quickly enough. Friday at 5:12, my mother was folding laundry on the dining table. White towels in one pile, dish rags in another, my father's machinist coveralls in a third. I came through the back door from school. I had been planning to retrieve the letter from beneath the bath mat that night after everyone was asleep and hide it inside the cover of my chemistry textbook. The letter was on the table beside the dish rags. My mother didn't look up. She kept folding. Bathroom trash isn't private, Teresa. I hadn't thrown the letter away. She had found it. She had read it. She had placed it on the table to wait for me to walk in. I was going to tell you, I said. Tell me what? She still didn't look up. That you applied behind my back? That you took 2 tests we never agreed to? That you used my address for college mail? I started to explain. Full scholarship. No debt. 4 years of room and board. I had it prepared in my head, the math of it, the lack of cost. My mother picked up the letter. She finally looked at me. She tore it down the middle slowly, all 3 pages at once. Then she turned the halves and tore them again. The pieces landed on the dining table. 4 rectangles of cream-colored paper with the red logo sliced clean in half. This is not who we are. My grandmother in the front room never looked away from her television. My sister Maddie on the bottom stair was gripping the banister with both hands. My father in the garage 2 rooms away didn't hear a thing. The entire tearing took maybe 7 seconds. My mother never yelled. She never raised her voice. That was the part one hadn't prepared for. I had prepared for shouting. I hadn't prepared for calm. By 7:30 that evening, my Aunt Carol was at our kitchen table. She lived 8 blocks away. My mother had called her at 5:18, 6 minutes after tearing the letter, the receiver still warm in her hand. My grandmother had wheeled her armchair into the dining room. My father had retreated to the garage with a sandwich. Maddie was upstairs and hadn't been invited. The 4 pieces of the letter were still on the table. No one had moved them. They were the centerpiece. The applesauce cake my mother baked Wednesday sat beside them, untouched. My grandmother spoke first. The eldest daughter stays. Always has. My Aunt Carol nodded. I stayed. Linda stayed. Teresa stays. That's how it works. I said MIT offered me a full ride. My grandmother adjusted her glasses. Then they wasted a letter. I said it again slower. 4 years tuition free. Room and board included. Engineering. A career I could build. I laid it out the way I had rehearsed it in my head hundreds of times in the library. My mother said, "Your sister is 13. She needs you here." I said, "Maddie will be fine." My Aunt Carol said, "Your aunt had her chance once. So did your mother." I missed the second half of that sentence. I heard chance and aunt, and my mind stopped at aunt. I should have heard so did your mother. I didn't. My grandmother repeated herself. She liked repetition. The eldest daughter stays. No one asked me what I wanted. No one asked me what MIT had offered. No one asked me what my SAT score was. They had already decided. They had decided the night I was born. They had decided when my grandmother was born. The conversation in the dining room was procedural. I stopped arguing at 8:15. I went upstairs at 10 o'clock. I did not sleep. I waited. At midnight, my mother went to bed. At 12:30, my father came inside from the garage and made the floorboards creak past my door. At 1:15, the house was quiet enough that I could hear the refrigerator humming from the kitchen. I went downstairs at 1:40. The 4 pieces of the letter were still on the dining table. My mother had not thrown them away. She had left them there as a lesson. I gathered them. I took them to the upstairs bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the tile floor with my back against the tub. Scotch tape. Mom kept a roll in the medicine cabinet for labels on her prescription bottles. I pulled the strip slowly. I taped each tear like a stitch. My mother had taught me how to mend things. She just had never said which things. Hems, yes. Buttons, yes. Letters from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, no. The sentence about the scholarship ran across 2 tape lines. I could still read it. I folded the letter into thirds. I placed it in the inside chest pocket of my denim jacket, the one that zipped closed. I went back to my room and opened the bottom drawer of my dresser. $340 in cash saved from babysitting the Patel kids next door over the past 2 years. A printed Greyhound schedule I had downloaded at the library and folded into 8s back in October, Boston route. 5:22 a.m. departure from Pottsville. I wrote a note for Maddie. Half a page. I told her I would write. I told her not to be afraid. I slipped it beneath her pillow at 3:40 while she slept with her mouth slightly open. I went down the stairs in socks. The light in the garage was on. I had expected it to be off. My father stood at his workbench. Sleeves rolled, hands greasy, the carburetor from the 1992 Buick that didn't run sitting open on a clean rag. He wasn't fixing it. He was pretending to. He had been waiting. I stood in the doorway with my coat on and my duffel bag at my feet. He turned. He looked at me the way he looked at customers who came into the tool shop with a problem they couldn't explain. He nodded once. "Your mother loves you, Teresa." "I know." He wiped his hands on the rag. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. He counted out 4 $20 bills. He held them toward me. I took them. $80. He had $80 in his wallet on a Friday after payday, and somewhere between dinner and 1:40 a.m., he had decided to give every dollar of it to me. "For the bus," he said. I tucked the bills inside my jacket with the letter. He didn't ask where I was going. He didn't need me to tell him. He had heard my mother on the phone with Carol. He had heard the tearing through the wall. He had been awake the same way I had been awake. I didn't say thank you. I didn't say goodbye. He didn't reach for me, and I didn't reach for him. He turned back to the carburetor. I picked up my duffel. I walked out the side door of the garage into the alley. It was 4:11 a.m. The temperature was 31 degrees. I could see my breath. The taped letter rested against my collarbone, folded into thirds. $80 on top of it. The Greyhound station in Pottsville was a glass cinder-block waiting room attached to a Sunoco gas station, 1.4 miles from my house. I walked there in 24 minutes. My duffel bag was a navy nylon Eastpak with one broken strap. It contained 3 changes of clothes, a paperback copy of The Catcher in the Rye, my SAT prep book, my high school transcript folded twice, my driver's license, a spare pair of glasses, and a Ziploc bag with my toothbrush inside. That was every item I owned that mattered. I bought my ticket at the window from a man named Earl. Boston Greyhound, $89. The bus left at 5:22 a.m. and arrived at South Station at 6:54 p.m. 13 hours and 32 minutes. I paid with $3.20s, $110, $4 $1 bills. I had $251 left. I boarded at 5:14. I took a window seat behind the driver. The seat beside me stayed empty. The bus pulled away at exactly 5:22. I watched our street slide past, 3 blocks east of the station. Our house, the kitchen light glowing, the upstairs dark. My mother's silhouette stood behind the kitchen window holding a coffee cup. She was watching the bus leave. I am almost certain of it. I didn't wave. She didn't see me. Maddie's bedroom light came on at 5:30. She had found the note. The light stayed on for 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Then it went dark. I don't know what she did between minute 1 and minute 2. I have wondered for 7 years. I took the taped letter out of my jacket, read the scholarship sentence one more time, folded it again, slipped it back, and fell asleep against the window. $340 from babysitting. $80 more from my dad. 1 taped letter. It was enough. South Station at 6:54 p.m. smelled like diesel and pretzel salt. I walked from South Station to MIT Student Services with my duffel on my back. It was 5 miles. I had paper directions printed at the Pottsville Library 2 weeks earlier. I arrived at the Office of First Generation Student Programs at 9:30 p.m. on a Friday in March. The office was closed. I sat on the floor outside the door. I opened my SAT prep book and pretended to study so the security guard wouldn't move me along. He moved me along at 10:15. I slept in a study lounge in the basement of the student center on a vinyl couch the color of wet sand, with my duffel as a pillow. I slept 4 hours. On Monday morning at 8, a woman named Dr. Marina Ortiz opened her office door, saw me sitting on the bench outside, and said, "You're early." I said, "I came early." She asked, "How early?" I answered, 3 days. I hadn't eaten a real meal since the bus station in Hartford, where I bought a hot dog. Dr. Ortiz took one look at me and walked me down the hall to the cafeteria where she had a faculty meal pass. She bought me eggs, toast, and orange juice. She watched me eat. She didn't say anything until I finished. Then she asked, "Tell me what you have." I had the tape letter. I had $316 left. I had a duffel bag with the broken strap. I had no signed parent affidavit. I had no proof of income because my parents wouldn't provide it. Dr. Ortiz looked at the taped letter for a long moment. She turned it over, then turned it back. She said, "Keep that." I started putting it back into my jacket. She stopped me. "Frame it. Frame it cheap, but keep it somewhere you can see it." That was my first week at MIT. The first year passed the way years pass when you're surviving. I took 18 credit hours each semester plus summer courses. And I worked 20 hours a week in the materials science lab and another 12 in the dining hall. My GPA at the end of freshman year was 3.76. It climbed to 3.89 sophomore year. I emailed my mother twice. The first email came during the second week of school, my new address and dorm phone number. The second came after fall finals, a short paragraph that ended with, "I miss you." Neither received a reply. I stopped emailing. October of sophomore year, 11 p.m. I checked my MIT email before bed. There was a message from Madison_1994 at Yahoo. I didn't recognize the address. I almost deleted it. Then I read the subject line. Mom. The body was 3 sentences. She told the church, "You're dead." The priest asked during coffee hour. Aunt Carol confirmed it. People believed it. It was signed, Maddie. I read the email 3 times. I closed the laptop. I walked into the kitchen of the apartment I shared with 2 other scholarship students, drank a glass of water, then came back. I read it a 4th time. My mother had buried me, not metaphorically. She had told the parishioners of St. John the Baptist on Howard Avenue in Pottsville that I had died. My Aunt Carol, my mother's sister, had been the confirming witness. The priest, Father Hennessy, had asked during coffee hour after the 11 a.m. Mass. The story of the dead daughter was easier than the story of the living daughter who refused to stay. My mother had chosen the lie. So had my aunt. The whole town would now treat my mother with a kind of gentle sympathy, the way you treat someone carrying a recent tragedy. I did not reply to Maddie. I didn't know what to say to her in October of sophomore year. I closed the laptop. I went to bed at 11:40. I didn't fall asleep until 2:20. The payphone in the lobby of the MIT Student Center, the one outside the post office, rang for me on a Tuesday in March of junior year at 4:11 p.m. I was walking past it on my way to a problem set group. The desk attendant flagged me down. She said, "Teresa Davis? There's a man on the line. Says he's your father." I hadn't heard his voice in 2 years and 4 months. I picked up. "Teresa. Dad. Grandma had a stroke. Mild, she's home. She's asking for you." I stood with the receiver against my left ear and watched a freshman drop a textbook onto the floor. I asked, "When did it happen?" 3 weeks ago. I let the silence settle. He sat in it too. He had called me at a payphone on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after the event, with no email beforehand, no warning, and my mother's hand likely somewhere near his elbow. I said, "She had 3 weeks of asking, and you waited until now to call?" He didn't answer. I said, "Tell her I'm in finals." "I'm sorry." I hung up. Finals weren't for another 6 weeks. I knew it. He knew it. The lie was a gift to both of us. It let me hang up without saying no. It let him tell my mother I had been studying. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment and went through my logic the way I worked through problem sets. The math was simple. Grandma had a stroke. Grandma was home. Grandma did not want me there. Grandma had wanted me to stay home 7 years earlier, and she had not changed her mind. My father had been told to call. My father had called. My answer had been a small lie that gave everyone an exit. I didn't feel guilty. I noticed with some surprise that I didn't feel guilty. I went to bed at 10:30. I slept 8 hours for the first time in 3 months. If you've ever had your dad call carrying someone else's guilt, your mother's, your grandmother's, your aunt's, and you knew before picking up that the call wasn't really from him, I'd love to hear what you said. Drop it in the comments. And if you're new to Calm Drama Stories, hit subscribe. Sunday's story is about a woman who answered her phone for the last time. Senior year, December. I moved off campus into a studio apartment above a sandwich shop on Massachusetts Avenue, 3 subway stops from the lab. My rent was $840 a month. My stipend covered $700 of it. The lab covered the rest in exchange for 15 hours a week as a research assistant. I had a bookshelf, a futon, a small desk beneath the window, a kettle, a walk-up apartment, and a roommate named Maya, who was 3 years into her own doctorate in chemical engineering. Maya was from Lagos, Nigeria. She had left her family at 19 for reasons not unlike mine. We didn't talk about it. The frame was $14 at the CVS on Mass Avenue. Black plastic. 8 inches by 10. I had carried the tape letter folded inside the cover of my sophomore year organic chemistry textbook for 2.5 years. The folds had softened. The tape was turning brown. I hadn't added more tape. The tears weren't pulling loose. The letter held. I unfolded it on the kitchen counter the night I bought the frame. I flattened the creases as much as I could with the back of a spoon. I slid the letter behind the glass and tightened the 4 metal tabs. I hung it on a nail above my desk. Maya came home at midnight. She made tea. She walked over to the desk and looked at the frame for 30 seconds. Why is it taped? My mom tried to throw it away once. Once. Maya nodded. She went to her room. That was all I said about it for the next 18 months. I didn't need to explain more. The letter was on the wall. The tape browned slowly. Anyone who entered my apartment and asked got the same 2-word answer. Anyone who didn't ask didn't need to know. It was an artifact. It was a calendar I never had to mark. Every day I sat at that desk, I looked up. Every day I looked up, I remembered. I had taped it back together. I crossed the stage at Killian Court on a Friday in May. The weather was 68 degrees. Partly cloudy. No rain. The ceremony began at 10 a.m. My section, Mechanical Engineering, walked at 11:42. My name was the 43rd called out of 212 in my section. I had mailed 4 invitations to Pottsville 3 months earlier. Mother, father, grandmother, Aunt Carol. Mother's came back stamped return to sender. The envelope had been opened. The contents read, the envelope resealed with a different brand of tape than the one she used to repair my chemistry homework in 8th grade, then placed back into the mailbox. She had taken time to send it back. She hadn't taken time to write anything. Father's was opened. No reply. I learned later from Maddie that he had read it on the porch and slipped it into his coverall pocket. Grandmother's was used as a coaster for her morning coffee. The water rings stained the cardboard backing. Maddie sent me a photo 6 months later. The water ring was perfect, as if she had centered the mug deliberately. Aunt Carol's was thrown away unopened. I had reserved 4 seats in the family section, rows G through J on the aisle. 3 were empty at 11:32 when the ceremony started. I had hoped, the way you hope for things you already know won't happen, that one of them would be filled. Dr. Ortiz came. She sat in the first seat. She wore a navy blazer and clapped for me when I crossed the stage. The only person in row G who applauded for any graduate by name. My faculty advisor, Dr. Sunita Reddy, sat in the second seat. Maya sat in the third. The 4th seat stayed empty. After the ceremony, the 3 of them took me out for Indian food at Diva on Hampshire Street. Dr. Ortiz ordered the lassi. We didn't talk about who hadn't come. We talked about my doctorate beginning in the fall in Dr. Reddy's lab. I scanned the crowd at the end. I didn't find her. The package arrived on a Tuesday in July, my first month as a doctoral student, 2 months after graduation. It was a brown cardboard box, 12 by 10 by 8, the kind you buy at a UPS store. The shipping label was handwritten in pencil. The postmark said Pottsville. The return address line was blank. I opened it on the kitchen counter at 6:15 p.m. with a steak knife. Inside the cardboard box was Grandma Margaret's wooden recipe box. The same one. Oak. Davis carved across the lid, the varnish darker than I remembered, the hinge stiffer. I lifted the lid. The index cards were still there. Lasagna with mozzarella, Pyragus, krupnik, applesauce cake, Frank's chili, hot milk sponge cake, Polish white borscht. 53 cards in my grandmother's handwriting and 4 in my mother's. Under the cards, the cardboard insert lifted out. Beneath the insert, lying flat against the bottom of the box, was a yellowed manila envelope. I sat down on the floor. Inside the manila envelope were 3 items. The first item was a high school transcript from Pottsville Area High School, class of 1991. The name on the transcript was Linda Marie Walsh. Linda. My mother. The grade point average was 3.94. National Honor Society. Senior class secretary. Top 5%. The second item was an acceptance letter from Lehigh Carbon Community College, Registered Nurse Program, Fall Semester, 1991. Partial scholarship, $1,200 per semester. Total cost after scholarship, $1,780 per semester. The letter was dated April 3, 1991. The third item was the same acceptance letter in two pieces, taped back together with brittle, yellowed masking tape. The masking tape had cracked along the spine. The two pieces were still attached, but the tape had given up sometime in the last decade. My mother had taped her own scholarship letter back together in 1991, and then she had kept it for 33 years. The roll of Scotch tape in our bathroom medicine cabinet, the one I used at 1:40 a.m. 7 years ago, that roll had first been hers. She had taught me without ever telling me what she had taped. I sat with those 3 papers on my kitchen counter for 2 hours. I didn't cry. I don't remember thinking. I remember the kettle was on and I forgot about it, and Maya turned it off when she came in around 8. Maya looked at the papers. She didn't ask. She made tea for both of us. She sat across from me. I worked the math out. My mother had been 18 in 1991. She had nearly the same GPA I had. She had been senior class secretary. She had applied to community college on her own. Someone had torn her letter. My grandmother, almost certainly. The same grandmother who sat in the front room with the television volume low. My mother had taped the letter back together with masking tape, which was what existed in the Davis kitchen in 1991. She had hidden the taped letter at the bottom of the wooden recipe box she would inherit after my grandmother died. She had stayed. She had married my father in October of 1992. She had me in May of 2002. She spent 25 years cooking from the recipe cards placed above the letter. Then she tore mine. I understood the math. I did not forgive it. Understanding and forgiveness are not the same thing. Understanding said, she is also someone's eldest daughter. Not forgiving said, she held tape in her hands once and still chose to repeat it. At the bottom of the manila envelope was a photograph. 4x6. Color faded slightly. It was my mother at 18 standing on the porch of a building in Schnecksville, Pennsylvania, wearing nursing scrubs that didn't yet belong to her. She was holding a Lehigh Carbon Community College brochure. She was smiling. I had never seen her smile that way. I have looked through every photograph in our family albums. She appears in maybe 40 of them. In none of those 40 does she smile the way she smiles in the Lehigh Carbon photograph. I sat with the math of it. 33 years between her tape and mine. The roll was the same brand. The lab spun out a company during my second year of doctoral work. It was called Sensor. We built mass spectrometry sensors for hospital clinical labs. Faster detection of bloodstream infections than standard culture methods. 16 hours instead of 24 to 72. Patent filed in January. University's spin-out paperwork signed in March. Dr. Reddy was Chief Scientific Officer. 5 graduate students were named on the patent, including me. My founder equity grant was 2.4% of the company, vesting over 4 years with a 1-year cliff. The cliff vested on a Tuesday in March of my 6th year at MIT. SenScore closed series of funding 11 months later at a pre-money valuation of $31 million. My vested shares on paper were worth $750,000 and change. The remaining unvested portion was worth nearly that much again. I told nobody in Pottsville. The night of the cliff, I wrote one email to Maddie at her old Yahoo address. The subject was, "Hi." The body was, "Okay. Hope you are." I hadn't emailed her in 5 years. Maddie replied at 4 a.m. the same day. She must have had email notifications on her phone with sound on. The reply was, "Haley just turned 5. She's smart. T like you smart." I hadn't known how old Maddie's oldest child was. I hadn't known her name. I learned both in one sentence. I read the email twice. I went to bed at 2:30. Maddie sent a follow-up 2 days later. A picture of a 5-year-old in pink corduroy holding a magnet tile castle. I saved it into a folder on my desktop labeled M. I added pictures to that folder over the next 8 months whenever she sent them. 16 pictures by the end of the year. I didn't reply to most. I replied to 1 or 2 with a single emoji. I still didn't know what I was going to do with the math of $750,000 on paper. I knew I had time. I knew Haley was 5. I knew the next eldest daughter conversation in our family was approximately 12 years away, or so I thought. The second call from my father came 2 years and 3 months after the first one. October. I was in the lab at 6:20 p.m., running a calibration on a new detector. My phone vibrated on the bench. Unknown number. Pennsylvania area code. I answered because I had stopped expecting to recognize the area code. Teresa. Dad. Grandma's 80th is in 6 weeks. They want you there. Your mother. I sat on the lab stool. Your mother's been telling everyone you didn't get into MIT. That you flunked out. That's the story now. Up at the church. Up at Carol's. He paused. Why are you calling Dad? Because they're starting on Haley. I closed the laptop attached to the calibration. The detector hummed. What do you mean starting? The talk about staying. Carol started it at Easter. Linda's nodding. Maddie isn't saying no. They're laying it out for her, so she'll think it was her idea by the time she's 12. She's 5. She's 5. I picked up a pen from the bench. I wrote on the back of my hand. 6 weeks. Haley birthday. How do you know they're starting now? Carol bought her a play kitchen. I stared at the pen mark. I said, thank you for telling me, Teresa. I should have called sooner. Yes. I hung up. I walked out of the lab. I didn't finish the calibration. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and made a list the same way I made every list in the lab. Numbered. Columns. Falsifiable. Item 1. What I wanted to say. Answer. Nothing. Actions only. Item 2. What I wanted to leave behind. Answer. The taped letter. The 1991 photograph. A document. Item 3. Who the audience was. Answer. Haley. Only Haley. Everyone else was witness scaffolding. Item 4. When. Answer. My grandmother's 80th birthday. Saturday in November. 6 weeks away. 30 witnesses, including church friends. Public enough that the conversation could not later be denied by my mother. Item 5. What I would not do. Answer. Argue. Raise my voice. Justify. Apologize for being late. Item 6. What I would do if my mother tried to stop me at the door. Answer. Stand on the porch. Speak through the screen. Haley would still hear me. Item 7. Funding. Answer. A trust. Money to be set aside in a registered account before the trip, so the document I would place on the table would be real, not promised. I made one final note at the bottom. This is not revenge. This is a controlled demonstration. Inputs. Outputs. Controls. I went to bed at 5:20 a.m. I slept for 2 hours. I woke at 7:30. I called the lawyer Maya's brother had used for a stock purchase agreement. Her name was Sarah Klein. Sarah Klein had an office on Boylston Street in Back Bay. She charged $380 an hour. I went on a Thursday at 4:15 p.m. I brought a notebook. I told her what I wanted. A trust funded by liquidated equity. $250,000. Beneficiaries. Any female or male descendant of Margaret Davis, age 17 or older, accepted into any accredited college, university, or trade school in the United States or Canada. 2-year. 4-year. Certificate programs. Didn't matter. Haley, my niece, would be the first eligible at 17. Her brother Cody would be eligible too. Sarah said, "You want the boys included." I said, "The tradition was gendered. The trust isn't. That's the point." She drafted the document over the next 8 days. We met twice more. The corpus was wired from my Senscore share liquidation on a Monday. The trust was signed and notarized 11 days after our first meeting. Sarah was the trustee. I was the grantor. The instrument was named the Davis Daughters Education Trust, with a footnote clarifying that it covered all descendants. I kept daughters in the title on purpose. Sarah handed me the signed document in a cream-colored envelope with her firm's letterhead. She asked twice whether I wanted to include a note for the family. I said no both times. She accepted that answer the second time without asking again. $250,000. Notarized in 11 days. The notary asked twice whether I wanted to attach a note. I said no. If you've ever put money behind a younger version of yourself, a niece, a cousin, a kid down the street, and didn't ask for credit, I'd love to hear it. Tell me in the comments what you created and why. And if you're enjoying this one, hit subscribe. There's a story coming Sunday about a woman who paid for a stranger's tuition and never told her own family. The Friday before the party, I packed. The briefcase was a brown leather saddleback, a graduation gift Maya had insisted on for my bachelor's degree. I had used it twice. It was small, 12 inches by 15. 2 compartments. A flap. 1 brass buckle. Inside, in order from bottom to top, the trust document in its cream-colored envelope. My PhD candidate status letter from the MIT Department of Mechanical Engineering on official letterhead, signed by Dr. Reddy as my advisor. My Bachelor of Science diploma in its 5x7 folio. The photograph of my mother at 18, the Lehigh Carbon Community College brochure picture, slipped between the pages of the diploma folio so it wouldn't bend. On top, the taped MIT letter. I removed it from the frame. I folded it again along the original thirds. I placed it above the diploma. That was the briefcase. I dressed for the trip on Saturday morning at 5 a.m. Dark navy slacks. White button-down. Plain collar. No embellishments. Black flats. Hair down. No makeup. No jewelry. No wedding ring because I've never had one. No earrings because I don't own any. The only thing with shine on me was the brass buckle of the briefcase. I dressed like the engineer I was. No costume. No statement. The briefcase did the talking. I flew from Logan to Philadelphia. I rented a charcoal-colored Honda CR-V at the airport. I drove west on Interstate 76. I stopped once for coffee. Pottsville on a Saturday morning in November looked exactly the way it always had. Brick row houses on Mahanango. Dollar General on Center Street. 2 empty storefronts where there had once been a bakery and a hardware store. The bakery had been Patel Family Bakery. The Patels moved to Schuylkill Haven 6 years earlier after the business closed. I drove past my old high school. The marquee read, "Go Tide." The football team was the Crimson Tide. Some things never changed. I drove past the Greyhound station. The cinderblock waiting room was still there. The Sunoco pump beside it had been replaced with a touchscreen model. The same Earl was probably no longer behind the ticket window. Earl had been 62 when I bought my ticket. Earl would be 69 now. I drove past the Goodwill on Center Street. In the window display was a kitchen apron. Green and yellow print folded over a hanger. It looked like the aprons my mother wore every Saturday morning of my childhood. Same length. Same hem. Different pattern. Goodwill rotated stock weekly. The apron in the window today wasn't my mother's. It belonged to someone. Someone like my mother. I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. I drove by at the speed limit. I turned onto Mahanango Street at 10:14 a.m. I parked the Honda at the curb across from the Davis house. The mailbox at the curb had been repainted blue. I sat in the rental and counted to 100. I walked up the 4 porch steps at 10:42 a.m. I knocked twice with the back of my middle knuckle, the way my father knocked coming in from the garage. My mother opened the door 3/4 of the way. She was wearing an apron. Same brand. Different print from the one in the Goodwill window. Her hair was nearly half gray. She hadn't gained or lost weight. Her face looked the same and not the same. The way faces look after 7 years of not seeing them. She didn't say come in. She didn't say Teresa. She didn't say hello. She said, "You're early by 18 minutes. The party starts at noon. Stay in the car." She closed the door. Through the gap before it shut, I saw the kitchen counter behind her. The recipe box was on it. Davis carved across the lid. It looked exactly the way it always had in exactly the same spot. I had returned the box the previous summer by mailing it back with a note written in Maya's mother's handwriting. Only found this at Sabina's apartment. Thought you'd want it back. It had worked. The box was home. My mother had no idea I had ever held it. I walked back to the Honda CR-V. I sat in the driver's seat. I turned the heat to 68. I waited. It was 10:43 a.m. The party started at noon. 18 minutes was 18 minutes. Cars started arriving at 11:15. I had a clear view from the Honda. Aunt Carol and her husband Donnie came in the cream-colored Buick LeSabre. Carol got out first. Heavier than I remembered. Gray hair in a stiff perm. She glanced at the rental across the street and pretended not to. Maddie next. 11:22. Green Subaru Outback. Maddie was a woman now. 23. She lifted Cody, the 2-year-old, from the back seat onto her hip with the practiced efficiency of someone who hadn't had a free hand in 3 years. Tim, her husband, lifted Haley from the other side. Haley was wearing a pink dress and white tights and a small navy cardigan. She held a plastic bay horse in her left hand. Her hair was the same blonde mine had been at 5. Cousins followed. 3 from my father's side, 2 from my mother's side. The Walsh cousins. 2 church friends of my grandmother's, Mrs. Hardesty and Mrs. Vargas, arriving in a Cadillac driven by Mrs. Hardesty's grandson. At 11:53, Maddie crossed the street. She had taken off her coat. She came straight to the driver's window. I rolled it down. She said, "I sent you the box." "I know. It took me 5 years to find it. You had it in the attic." "Thank you. Are you going to make a scene?" "No. I'm going to make an option." She looked at me for 2 seconds. Then she nodded once and walked back across the street. I walked in at 12:08 p.m. The living room held 30 people. Folding chairs lined the walls. Plastic tablecloths covered every surface. A cake sat on the dining table, white with yellow piping reading, "Happy 80th." A second cake, smaller and lemon, rested on the counter. The recipe box was still there. On the kitchen counter. The room paused when the door opened. Then it stopped. My mother, in the kitchen archway, said one word. She came. My grandmother sat in her green corduroy armchair, the same one from 7 years ago. She looked up over reading glasses. New lenses. Same frames. "Teresa, you look thin." "Hi, Grandma." Aunt Carol from the dining table said, "Took you long enough. Sorry I missed Christmases." Carol opened her mouth. My father crossed from the kitchen. Older now. He had aged in ways the room couldn't hide. He hugged me. 2 seconds. He let go. He said nothing and went back. I stood in the entryway with the briefcase in my right hand. Haley was on the carpet in front of the television, 10 feet away, playing with the plastic bay horse. Cody sat on Maddie's lap. Tim talked with Donnie. The room relearned itself in about 15 seconds. Sound returned. Mrs. Hardesty asked Mrs. Vargas about coffee. I sat in the nearest folding chair by the front window. The briefcase rested on the floor beside my left foot. At 12:31, my mother tapped a butter knife against a water glass. The room fell quiet. My father stepped into the kitchen doorway, coffee cup in hand. Maddie placed Cody on the carpet beside Haley. My grandmother stood. The cane bore her weight on the left. Her right hand steadied on the armchair. "Thank you all for coming. 80 years. A soft laugh from Mrs. Vargas. A clap from Donnie. "I want to say something about our family." She looked at Haley, pushing the toy horse along the coffee table edge. "Davis women stay close. We don't chase. We don't drift. We don't get above ourselves." My Linda stayed. My Carol stayed. My Maddie stayed. A pause. Her eyes returned to Haley. "And one day soon my Haley will stay too." She lifted her glass. "To staying." 28 glasses rose. 28 voices echoed it. "To staying." Carol's was the loudest. My father lifted his cup halfway, then stopped at his chest. He didn't say it. 2 glasses stayed down. Mine stayed down. I sat with my hands folded in my lap. The water glass beside me never moved. Maddie had lifted hers. She held it at chest height. Not higher. Not to her lips. She didn't speak. She set it down. My mother didn't see it. She was watching me. I slid the briefcase forward until it rested directly in front of me. The applause lasted 9 seconds. Conversation returned. My grandmother sank back into her chair. Mrs. Hardesty refilled her cup. Maddie lifted Cody again. My mother crossed the room. She stopped at the kitchen archway beside my chair. Low voice. Don't. I looked up. Whatever you're thinking, don't. I'm not thinking. I already decided. You will not embarrass this family today. I'm not here to embarrass anyone. Then what are you here to do? I'm going to talk to Haley. Her hand went to her hip. The other held a dish towel. Same brand as always. Same cotton. Same pattern of life. I had folded those towels thousands of times as a child. 3 folds. Davis fold. Haley is 5, Teresa. I know. You don't get to walk in here after 7 years. Mom. She stopped. I'm not asking anything from you. I'm not here to fight. I'm going to put something in front of her and leave. You can do whatever you want after I'm gone. This is my house. It's Grandma's house. She didn't answer. She turned and went back into the kitchen. I watched her twist the dish towel between her hands like dough. I picked up the briefcase, walked across the carpet, kneeled in front of Haley. The room tightened again. Silence settled. Haley looked up, bay horse in her left hand. She had her mother's eyes. She didn't recognize me. I had left before she existed. Hi, Haley. I'm your Aunt Teresa. Okay. I opened the briefcase. I took out the taped MIT letter. I unfolded it. I placed it on the carpet between us. Browning tape crossed the scholarship line. This is from when I was 18. Maybe Grandma will tell you about it someday. If she doesn't, your mom will. Haley looked at it. Didn't touch it. If you ever want school, high school, college, trade school, anywhere, this is a letter that says someone said yes to me. And someone will say yes to you too. You don't have to take this one. You'll get your own. From the kitchen doorway. Teresa, stop. I kept my eyes on Haley. I reached into the briefcase. I took out the cream envelope. I stood. Walked to the coffee table. Laid it beside the cake. This is $250,000. It's a trust. It's for any girl in this family who wants school, or any boy. Cody too. I looked at Maddie. Cody too. Aunt Carol stood. You can't do this here. I did it 3 weeks ago. I'm just telling you now. My grandmother rose again. Cane pressing down. Her face flushed. Teresa Marie Davis. The eldest daughter stays. I stood. Looked at my mother in the archway. Not my grandmother. My mother said, "This is not who we are." I answered her exactly as she had once answered me. Same tone. Same control. Then I'm not who we are. Silence. 28 faces held still. Haley picked up the taped letter. She lifted it. Showed it to Maddie. Maddie knelt. Took it gently. Held it. Didn't hand it back. I took the photograph from the briefcase. Walked to the dining table. Placed it beside the cake. Linda at 18. Nursing scrubs. That smile. I said nothing. My mother stepped into the dining room. She looked at the photograph 4 seconds. She picked it up. Turned it over. Turned it back again. Set it down. Where did you? I didn't answer. Where? I waited. She turned sharply. Frank, where did she, Frank? My father stood in the kitchen archway, unmoving, coffee cup in hand. He placed it on the counter behind him. He didn't look at her. My mother turned back to me. Her voice sharpened. You went through my things. You stole. You stole. Maddie sent the recipe box. What? Maddie found it in the attic. She sent it to me. I read what was inside it. Maddie, still sitting on the carpet beside Haley, didn't stand. Didn't deny it. Didn't confirm it. She held the taped letter against her chest. My mother said, "You don't get to?" Her voice rose now. The kind of rise she almost never allowed herself. My grandmother sat down hard. Aunt Carol crossed herself. I picked up the briefcase. It felt lighter now. The trust document was on the coffee table. The photograph on the dining table. The taped MIT letter was with Haley. The PhD letter and diploma stayed in the briefcase. They were never the point. I walked to the door. Hand on the knob. I turned back. Looked at my mother. I taped mine too, Mom. Same brand of tape. I opened the door. Stepped out. It shut behind me. From the porch, I heard her voice rise, higher than I had ever heard it. I walked to the rental. Didn't look back. I sat in the Honda at 10:07 p.m., key in the ignition. But I didn't turn it. The heat I had set to 68 had been off for 3 hours. The car was cold. A knock on the window. Maddie. She was holding the taped letter and the cream-colored envelope. Coat on now. Breath visible in the air. I rolled the window down. She said, Haley wants to keep this. She can. The trust. Is it real? Notarized. Sarah Klein, Boston. The numbers are on the cover sheet. Tim's going to be difficult. Tim doesn't have to sign anything. Haley is the beneficiary. You're the custodial parent. He's not on the paperwork. She exhaled white air. What about Cody? Cody too. Page 3. She nodded, held the letter and envelope tighter to her chest. Are you coming back? I don't know yet. Okay. She didn't say anything else. She walked back across the street. Went inside. The door closed. I turned the key. The engine started. The third call from my father came 3 months after the party. Wednesday, February, 6:40 p.m. I was at my kitchen counter in Cambridge, cutting onions. Phone vibrated. Pennsylvania area code. I picked up. Teresa. Dad. Haley just started a Saturday science program at Lehigh Carbon Community College. STEM camp for elementary kids. Maddie used the trust to register her. I stopped cutting. It's 6 Saturdays. 5 hours each. Maddie's driving her. Tim said it was Maddie's money to spend. Maddie said it was Haley's. Thank you for telling me. Your mother won't speak to me about it. She knows. She just won't say it. Okay. I should have called sooner. Teresa, 7 years sooner. Yes. A pause. Haley wants to write you. Can Maddie send your address? Yes. All right. He waited. I didn't say anything else. He hung up. I went back to the onions. Finished chopping. Sautéed them with garlic and olive oil. Made pasta. Ate standing at the counter. Lehigh Carbon Community College, the same school that had once sent my mother her letter in 1991. Haley was starting at 5. The envelope from Pottsville arrived 3 weeks later. Pink paper. Address in Maddie's handwriting. Return address in Haley's kindergarten scroll. Letters uneven. 1Y backwards. Inside, 2 pages. First, a letter from Haley. Crayon pink and red. 6 lines. Dear Aunt Teresa, Mom said you went to MIT. I am drawing a building. The building has my name on it. I am 5. Love, Haley. Second, a drawing. A red brick building. 3 stories. 6 windows. Across the top in red crayon Haley. Folded inside it, the original taped MIT letter. Same folds. Browning tape. Soft edges. On the back, a yellow sticky note. Adult handwriting. Maddie's voice, shaped through a child's line. Asterisk, I'm done with this one. I'll write my own asterisk. I put the drawing on the refrigerator. The letter went back in the frame. The frame went above my desk. The tape was still browning. It had reached the scholarship line. Still readable. I learned something at my grandmother's 80th that I should have learned at my mother's tearing. People will tell you who you are for as long as you let them. The only way to answer is to become someone else, quietly, without argument, until they have to decide whether to look away or look up. My mother is still deciding. That's my story. 1 torn letter, 1 roll of Scotch tape, and a 5-year-old standing in a brick building she hasn't built yet. If this reminded you of a younger sibling, a niece, a daughter, someone whose tradition isn't finished with her yet, take it as a sign. Open the option for her. Today. This week. And if you know a woman who ever taped something back together, share this with her. Hit subscribe. And I'll see you in the next.